Hi, Lou here. Primarily fighting with the evil results of a Microsoft update to Windows 10 that has ruined the functionality of sticky notes. But what I'm really here for is to talk about one aspect of puzzles that is harder to design than games. As I'm sure those of you who've listened to me many times know, I regard most modern so-called tabletop games and video games as actually puzzles. There's really very little to no interaction with other people, and there's almost always a always correct solution, which is why, of course, in a single-player video game, once you've played it, many times you can do a speed run and go through the entire thing in 5 or 10 minutes because you know the solution. Well, games are harder to design in most respects because it's people who provide the interest and the content, if you must use that awful word. Whereas with puzzles, you don't have people to provide that. So in a puzzle, the designer has to provide all the content, and that's a lot of work. We try to make games simple so that we can emphasize the people who are playing the games. We have to make puzzles complex so that the other people playing the game, if it's a parallel competition, don't really matter or matter very little. It's the game that matters. Or it's the puzzle that matters, even though we call it a game. And it's a lot of work to provide that content. And one way to perhaps avoid some of that work is to just make everything a lot more complex so that the player or players have to explore a lot more about the game system to figure out exactly what's going on and exactly what the always correct solution is. Now, as you know, I don't design puzzles, or I try to avoid it, and I don't like puzzles, and so I haven't experienced this difficulty of having to provide the content because I focus on the other players and how the other players affect what's going on and try to make the game itself as simple as possible. So my motto, which is the designer knows he has achieved perfection not when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away, simply does not apply in many respects to puzzles or parallel competitions and such where your game is really a puzzle. Thanks for listening.